My name is Robert Miller, and I'm 71 years old. I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, not far from the Susquehanna River. It's a quiet place. Tree-lined streets, neighbors who wave without stopping their cars, diners that still serve coffee in chipped white mugs. The kind of town where life doesn't rush until one day it does. Some of you might recognize my voice. A few months ago, I shared another piece of my story here, and I never expected the response I received. Letters, emails, comments from people younger than my own children, thanking me for saying things they were afraid to say out loud. I appreciated every word, but there's something I didn't talk about then, something heavier, something I've been carrying alone for years. Today, I need to talk about my wife, Margaret, and I need you to stay with me, because what I'm about to share isn't comfortable, but it might be important, especially if you love someone and think you still have time. Margaret and I were married for 38 years, longer than many marriages last these days. We met in our early 30s, back when Saturday nights meant homemade pasta, a shared bottle of wine, and reruns playing softly in the background. For most of our life together, I believed we had a good marriage. Not extraordinary, not dramatic, just steady, reliable. The kind of marriage people admire from the outside. We raised 2 children, paid the mortgage on a small brick house,
Took road trips instead of vacations, Florida beaches once every few years, always driving, never flying.
I worked long hours. Margaret handled most of the home. We showed up where we were supposed to. We did what responsible adults do. And for a very long time, I told myself that was love. Margaret passed away 5 years ago, ovarian cancer, diagnosed late. Things moved fast after that. Hospital rooms, muted conversations in hallways, doctors speaking gently but never softly enough. In her final days, she grew quieter, not weaker, just clearer. And one afternoon, sitting beside her hospital bed, she said something to me that didn't sound dramatic at the time, but it changed everything I thought I understood about our life together. Those words didn't hit me right away. In fact, I brushed them aside. I thought I misunderstood her. It wasn't until later, long after she was gone, that I realized what she was trying to tell me. And by then, it was too late to ask questions, too late to fix what I hadn't even noticed was broken. For years, I believed love was about stability, about doing the right thing, providing, staying. But looking back now, I see that belief may have cost us more than I ever imagined. And that realization didn't come gently. It came slowly, painfully, as I began to see our marriage not as I remembered it, but as it truly was. And that's what I need to tell you next. For a long time, I honestly believed nothing was wrong. We didn't fight much. We weren't unfaithful. We weren't cruel to each other. Compared to the stories you hear, I thought we were doing just fine. And that's what makes this so dangerous, because the absence of chaos can fool you into thinking there's connection. What no one tells you about long marriages is this: you can spend decades beside someone and still slowly stop seeing them. Not out of malice, not out of neglect you can point to, but through a quiet process of becoming comfortable, of assuming tomorrow will always be there. Margaret used to suggest small things, nothing extravagant. We should take evening walks again. Let's try a cooking class downtown. Do you remember how we used to sit on the porch and talk for hours? Each time I had a practical reason ready. I was tired. Work had been rough. It wasn't the right season. Maybe next month, maybe next year. I wasn't trying to disappoint her. In my mind, there was no urgency. We had time. We always had time. But those small invitations weren't about walks or classes or conversation. They were attempts to stay connected. And every time I said no, even gently, even kindly, I was closing a door she had taken courage to open. Over time, she stopped asking, not suddenly, gradually, so gradually I didn't notice. She filled her days in other ways, volunteering at the local library, having lunch with friends from church, taking weekend craft workshops in Lancaster. She became busy, self-sufficient, independent. I told myself that was healthy, that it meant she was happy. I never stopped to consider that maybe she had learned not to expect much from me anymore. Looking back now, I see how we drifted. We still shared meals, still watched television side by side, still discussed practical things, bills, appointments, family events. But the deeper conversations faded. The curiosity faded. The sense that we were choosing each other every day quietly disappeared. We weren't arguing, we weren't in crisis. We were simply existing next to one another, two responsible adults doing life efficiently but separately. And I truly believed this was normal. That passion naturally fades. That closeness is something you outgrow. I told myself real love was about endurance, not engagement, about staying, not reaching. I didn't realize then that comfort can slowly turn into distance, and distance, left unchecked, becomes something much harder to repair. The truth is, by the time I noticed the silence between us, Margaret had already accepted it, and I was still telling myself everything was fine. It wasn't, and it took her illness to show me just how wrong I had been. When Margaret got sick, everything we'd been postponing suddenly had a deadline. One doctor's appointment turned into another. A routine exam turned into hospital visits, test results, and quiet drives home where neither of us knew what to say. Our days began to revolve around schedules, medications, and waiting rooms that all looked the same. Time, which I had always assumed was abundant, became painfully limited. It was during one of those long afternoons in the hospital, rain tapping lightly against the window, the hum of machines filling the room, that Margaret said the words that would follow me for the rest of my life. Her voice was calm, not angry, not bitter, just honest. "Robert," she said, "we spent too much time being comfortable instead of being close." At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. I nodded. I told her everything would be okay. I reassured her in the ways I always had, by minimizing discomfort, by trying to fix things quickly instead of truly listening. But she wasn't talking about her illness. She was talking about us. As the weeks went on, the filters we'd both lived behind for years began to fall away. We talked more in those final months than we had in the previous decade, not because we suddenly became better communicators, but because there was nothing left to protect, no illusions to maintain, no time to waste pretending. She told me about moments I barely remembered, times she'd reached for connection and felt turned away. She spoke about feeling invisible, not ignored in obvious ways, but overlooked in the quiet spaces where relationships are built. She admitted that there were days she felt more alone sitting beside me than when she was actually by herself. That was hard to hear, harder than any diagnosis. One evening, not long before she passed, she talked about a place she had always wanted to see, Vermont in the fall, the small towns, the covered bridges, the mountains glowing red and gold. She had mentioned it more than once over the years, usually in passing, and every time I'd responded the same way. Maybe next year, when things slow down, when work isn't so busy. They never did. She wasn't angry when she mentioned it. That's what broke me. She spoke with a quiet acceptance that told me she had stopped believing it would ever happen. I asked her why she never pushed harder, why she didn't insist. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "Because I didn't want you to do it for me, I wanted you to want to do it with me." That sentence settled into me like a weight I've never been able to put down, because she was right. She wasn't asking for obligation. She was asking for interest, for engagement, for me to care because it mattered to her, and I hadn't. In that moment, I realized something devastating. Love doesn't disappear all at once. It fades quietly when effort stops feeling necessary, when curiosity is replaced with assumption, when comfort replaces connection. By the time Margaret said those words, she had already made peace with the distance between us, and I was only just beginning to see it. And once I did, there was no going back. After Margaret died, the house felt impossibly large. The same rooms, the same furniture, the same routines, but all of it hollowed out. Mornings were the worst. I'd wake up automatically reaching to the other side of the bed, still expecting warmth, still expecting to hear her moving around the kitchen. Grief doesn't announce itself, it just settles in. A few months after the funeral, while sorting through her things, I found something I didn't know existed. A small notebook tucked away in the nightstand. A journal. I hesitated before opening it.
Part of me felt like I was crossing a line, but curiosity won. Reading those pages was like meeting a version of my wife I had lived with but never truly known. She wrote about loneliness, about feeling like she was present in our marriage but never fully seen, about moments that seemed insignificant to me, times I checked my phone while she was talking, times I chose work emails over evening conversations, times I promised later and forgot.
She wasn't cruel in her writing. She wasn't resentful. That somehow made it worse. She wrote with honesty and restraint, as if she were documenting something she had already accepted. She also wrote about love, about who I had been when we first met, about hoping, quietly, that version of me might come back someday. I sat on the living room floor and cried in a way I hadn't during the funeral, because in those pages there was no room for denial, no way to tell myself everything had been fine. The evidence was there in her own words. I hadn't been a terrible husband. I had been something far more dangerous. I had been absent without leaving. I did what I thought was required. I provided. I stayed faithful. I showed up physically. But I mistook adequacy for devotion. I believed not failing was the same as succeeding. And relationships don't survive on that. They slowly erode. What haunts me most is that none of this was malicious. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just assumed that because she was still there, because the marriage was still standing, everything was intact. I believed love was something you secured once and then maintained on autopilot. I know now how wrong that was. Margaret didn't need more from me in dramatic ways. She needed me to be present when she spoke, to take her suggestions seriously, to choose connection even when I was tired or distracted or focused on other things. And I failed her in those quiet moments where effort mattered most. 6 years have passed, and I still think about Vermont in the fall, about how little it would have cost me to say yes. A weekend, a short drive, some shared time, that's all it would have taken to make her feel seen, and what I wouldn't give now to have that chance. But I don't, and that's why I'm telling you this, because while some losses are final, some mistakes are still preventable. If you're listening to this and you're in a relationship, married or not, I want you to pause for a moment, not to feel guilty, not to panic, just to be honest with yourself. Because the truth is, what happened to me doesn't begin with loss, it begins with routine. When was the last time you had a real conversation with your partner, not about schedules, not about bills or groceries or who's picking up the kids? I mean a real conversation about what they're thinking lately, about what they're worried about what they still dream of, even if life feels settled. When was the last time you did something simply because it would make them happy? Not because it was expected, not because it was a special occasion, but because you wanted them to feel chosen, seen, important. And when was the last time you truly looked at them? Not in passing, not out of habit, but really looked at them and felt gratitude that this person is still beside you. If you can't remember, you're not a bad person, but you might be making the same mistake I did. The greatest threat to a relationship isn't always betrayal or conflict. Sometimes it's indifference. It's assuming the person beside you will always be there. It's postponing connection until life slows down, until work calms down, until things feel easier. They rarely do. We tell ourselves there's time, that we'll get to it later, that the important things can wait. But later is a promise none of us can guarantee. I thought Margaret and I had decades ahead of us. I was wrong. After she was gone, people told me I'd been a good husband. They meant to comfort me, but those words didn't bring peace because I knew the truth. I hadn't been a bad man, but I had settled for being an adequate one. I met the minimum requirements and called it love, and love deserves more than minimum effort. If you're tired, say it, but stay engaged. If you're busy, admit it, but don't withdraw. Ask questions even when you think you already know the answers. Stay curious, because familiarity can quietly become blindness if you're not careful. Margaret didn't need perfection. She needed presence. And presence is something you choose every single day. I can't change what I missed. I can't go back and take those trips or have those conversations or say yes when I said later, but you might still be able to. And that's why the next thing I'm going to tell you matters more than anything else. There's a photograph on my desk that I keep in a simple wooden frame. It was taken in the summer of 1985 at a small park outside State College, Pennsylvania. Margaret is sitting on a picnic blanket, laughing at something I can't even remember now. Her hair is pulled back. The sun is in her eyes. She looks hopeful, alive, certain that the future is still wide open. I look at that picture often and think about the woman she became. Still kind, still patient, still loving, but quietly more alone than she ever should have been. Not because I abandoned her, not because I betrayed her, but because little by little I stopped choosing her with intention. We don't usually lose the people we love in sudden, dramatic ways. More often, we lose closeness through neglect that feels harmless at the time. We assume love will sustain itself, that showing up is enough, that stability replaces effort. It doesn't. Love isn't something you secure and move on from. It's something you practice every day, in small moments and ordinary choices. In listening when it would be easier to tune out, in saying yes when convenience tells you no, in caring about what matters to them simply because it matters to them. If you share your life with someone right now, you still have something I don't. You still have time. You can have the conversations I delayed. You can take the trip you've been postponing. You can do the small things that feel unremarkable now, but will mean everything later. Don't wait for a crisis to remind you what's important. Don't wait for illness or loss or regret to open your eyes. Love the people in your life actively, intentionally, while you still can. I'm not sharing this to burden you. I'm sharing it because I wish someone had said it to me before it was too late. This channel exists so people like me can share the lessons we learned the hard way, in the hope that someone else won't have to. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. And if you took something from it, a like or a comment helps others find these stories too. And if you have a story of your own, something life taught you later than you'd hoped, there's a place to share it in the description below. Maybe your story will help someone else choose differently while they still have the chance. I wasted 38 years thinking love would wait for me. Don't make my mistake.